So guys, now the next thing you want to understand is what environment you belong to. So you need to purchase succulents according to your environment. For example, some succulents will not do quite well in direct sunlight, like my string of tears will not do quite well in direct sunlight. So you need to check what succulents will do well. Do you want to keep succulents in indirect bright light, or do you want to keep succulents in full sun? So like these are my sedum adolphi. They prefer full direct sunlight. Now I have placed the succulents over here just for the video. Otherwise this succulent is in indirect bright light. These are some variegated Mrs. Richard and some Graptopetalum mendozae. So these are in direct sunlight, morning direct sunlight for 5 to 6 hours. Some of my sedum, golden glow, titubans and ghosty. So these succulents, they prefer a good amount of direct sunlight, morning direct sunlight for 5 to 6 hours, whereas some succulents will do only well in indirect bright light. So you need to understand what is your requirement, what is the type of sunlight you receive. So now this completely depends upon you, whether you want succulents that are slightly subtle in color, or do you want really bright colors. Now if you want succulents that are really bright color, then of course you'll have to have a good amount of sunlight in order to maintain these colors. If you are going to get indirect bright light, then these colors will not be very intense. If you only receive indirect bright light, then you can go with subtle succulents. Then you can go with succulents that have subtle colors, like this is my Echeveria elegans. They do not prefer a lot of direct morning sunlight. Probably 1 hour of morning sunlight is absolutely fine, or indirect bright light is absolutely fine for them. So it depends upon you, what kind of succulents do you like. If you are a person who only receives indirect bright light, then go for succulents that do well in indirect bright light. If you want succulents that have really bright colors and you get a good amount of morning direct sunlight, then you can go with succulents that have really bright light. So it all depends upon what are the conditions, or how your house is located and what is the amount of sunlight you tend to receive. Because all of these succulents that you see over here, if they do not get a good amount of light, they are not going to have those bright colors. If there is not much enough light, they will start to stretch. So you need to understand three things. One is, what kind of sunlight do you receive? Do you receive morning direct sunlight for 5 to 6 hours, or do you receive only afternoon direct sunlight, or do you only receive indirect bright light, or you receive no light at all? So if you receive a morning direct sunlight for 5 to 6 hours, of course you can get in a lot of colorful succulents, a lot of brightly colored succulents. They all will do quite well. But if you're a person who only tends to receive afternoon direct sunlight, it's absolutely fine, but you will have to ensure that you're using a shade cloth or a filtration, otherwise your succulents are going to get burnt. But if you're a person who only tends to receive indirect bright light, then you can go with succulents that do not require direct sunlight. Like you have a lot of varieties like Havartias, you have elegans. There are a couple of succulents that do not require a lot of direct sunlight. You can go with string of pearls, you can go with donkey tails, burrow's tail. So you can go with donkey tails, or you can go with burrow's tail. They do not require a lot of direct sunlight. They will do quite well in indirect bright light as well. But if you have a good amount of light and you want a lot of colorings, then you can definitely go with some ruby necklace, because they are also string succulents, but they require a good amount of direct sunlight. So it depends upon you. If you want to have succulents that are brightly colored, then you need to have a good amount of light. If you receive indirect bright light, then you can go with these succulents. They will do absolutely fine. But if you are a person who does not receive any light at all, then of course you can't do much. You will have to go ahead and buy a grow light. You will have to use a grow light. Otherwise your succulents will not survive. They will start to stretch. So you need to have a good amount of light, either indirect bright light, direct sunlight, filtered light. If no light, then you'll have to use a grow light.